We'd ask members of the council to turn on their microphones, please.
Do they need to be close to us?
Welcome you to the October meeting of the Logan-Cache Airport Authority Board. We appreciate the interest that you have in the...
I think people are saying they can't hear you. Yeah, his is green.
I'll speak up.
That's better.
Thank you. Appreciate your being here. Appreciate the interest that you have in the airport, an interest that we share. And we're looking forward to an interesting meeting today. We'll begin by asking for a motion for approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second. We approve the minutes from the September 4th meeting that have been provided. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
John, I'll abstain. I was going last time.
Bob, executive manager's report, please.
Good morning, everybody. I want to report on the meeting that George Daines and I had with Dave Cowley since the last meeting. Can you hear me?
Louder.
Louder, closer. Okay. I'll get it closer. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So George and I went up to meet with Dave Cowley. Appreciate Brett Hughey kind of starting the conversation and several months ago with the agreement we're seeking with Utah State for reimbursement for costs incurred by the airport to keep the 139 certificate. Dave was already on board with this, but his concern was that they don't want to be taken advantage of for other expenses that don't necessarily keep the certificate. And we assured him we're aware of those concerns and only 139 expenses would be billed. USU, we talked about formal agreement, written agreement, and USU is working on drafting that agreement to present to the board for a conversation there and to get something in place. So if Dave Cowley wins the lottery and isn't there, or I win the lottery and I'm not here, there's something in place that the agreement still stands. Budget amendments. So I went to the appropriations committee and then this went through the county council to give us some money we've got to move the PAPI control units. This isn't something new. This is from last year's inspection, and we've been granted that money. We've been granted a total of $93,170.12. And the expectation is all of that money will be reimbursed by USU once these projects are completed and paid for.
Just a little clarification. That money was not given to us. It is from our reserves. It was just moved from our reserve account to our active expenditure account.
Thanks for the correction, John. Pavement maintenance. Happy to report as part of that budget amendment process. A couple months ago, I had gone and gotten, so our south ramp area through those taxi lanes, the old hangars, that pavement is in rough shape. It hasn't been maintained. I got 3 estimates, and we've picked one of the vendors, and through the budget amendment and the tap into our reserves, our money, thank you, John, we've gotten approved to spend that money on the pavement maintenance. They're starting today. They'll be at the airport starting to crack seal. There's some larger cracks they're going to cut out and just put a new pavement in and patch. They will be all then putting 2 top coats, sealant coats on top. If any tenants would like their driveway done while they're there, please reach out to them. I've got their phone number here. I can read it off, or you can hit me up afterwards, or you can just grab one of the workers while they're there. I've talked with the manager of the company. He's 100% okay with that. If you want your driveway taken care of while they're in town working.
They pay for their own driveway, yeah.
John Kerr and I had a
Bob,
chance.
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
How will that be billed to the aircraft owners, the hangar owners?
So our project is our project. Anything additional will be billed to the tenant who asks for that work to be done.
Okay, all right.
Good
And
question.
that's fine
Yes,
with it?
I spoke with them and they're happy to do it. They know there may be multiple billings.
Okay,
Our project is our project. Anything additional will be on the tenant.
okay,
I meant to mention that. Thanks for asking.
thank you.
CIP plan, John Kerr and I had an opportunity last week to meet with Judd and Connor, representatives from the FAA and UDOT Aeronautics Department to plan for capital improvements. Everything's on track. We did add a new ARF truck in 6 years to the plan, 2031. That's the only thing new on the CIP planning. So as you know, we've had, if you looked at the agenda for today, we've had a draft proposed for development at the airport. You should each have a copy of that initial agreement that to be reviewed. And there's several others on the agenda today with the same idea. The policies and procedures manual that we talked about last month, that's still a work in progress. I worked on it, sent it in, got some redirection, so I'm pointing in a different direction there. I'm just fine tuning things, so we're not quite done there. And then hangar re-inspections, each of you will have a copy of the letter which was sent out. It was sent out to 14 tenants who had trouble in the springtime inspection. We just want to educate. We just want compliance. We're not trying to be heavy-handed here, but we need to be consistent and reach out. So we've reached out to 14 tenants. We sent this letter out to their email of record on September 23rd. We're doing inspections next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that's about a 14-day notice. We're required by their contract to give them 10 days notice, so we're exceeding that notice. So far, we've only had 2 people sign up, though, for inspections, so we'll see what happens with that. And Casey and I have recent talks. We've talked about having more. We've gotten a request or a suggestion from one of our tenants, thanks Joe Bates, to create a newsletter and update tenants and public of the positive things that are happening at the airport. We've thought about that. We've also thought about creating more of a social media presence to update tenants with upcoming projects. Hey, be aware of, the snow's coming or whatever the project may be, or here's a neat picture or things like that. Just engage the tenants more. Another avenue for them to reach me or my office, and for us to transfer information to them. And that's what I have for today's update. Are there any questions?
Bob, do you have somebody identified that's gonna do that social media for you, or are you gonna do it, or?
We're in the infancy of talking about it.
Okay,
We thought about just having a one login where each of my staff could log in and either monitor it or upload things to it. So if you have suggestions, I'm open to. Do you have experience with that?
well, no, I just know it can be a big job,
Yeah.
that's all.
And we're not wanting to get bogged down with. That's a good point. We've got enough work to do.
Right.
So that's why we're just talking about it at this point.
Okay.
Because it could be a full-time thing, and that's not what we're looking for.
Okay, I appreciate that, thank you.
Any other questions?
Kudos for the new recycle bins that have been added in the south end of the airport.
Another suggestion from Joe Bates.
So
Yep,
that's very handy.
okay,
Other comments?
okay, thanks.
Thank you. 3B, Lochner. Judd?
Judd Hill with Lochner. Good morning. So quick update on our projects. The most exciting news, the airport master plan is done. It is signed off by the FAA. And the final copy, so just very brief recap, airport master plan and airport layout plan. The airport master plan is basically a history looking at the past, present, and future of the airport and the decisions that went into that with the technical advisory committee. So very much appreciate everyone who spent a lot of time over the past couple of years working on getting that document prepared. That led to the graphical layout of the airport layout plan, and that's what was the final piece that actually gets signed off by the FAA, and it got signed off on Monday. So as far as where that document is now, there's the state system, Black Cat. It's basically an internal system that's for the airport and for the state and for the FAA. Also, actually, Janine, I sent you a link to it this morning, so you'd be able to download it, and then also to Bob and to John, the signed copy. So do with it as you will, but it's not uncommon. Thinking of social media, it's sometimes one of those things that could be linked on a website or something like that. But that project, now we'll just deal with the closeout of that project. The other project is the taxiway Kilo. So with that, the FAA had requested some additional geotech engineering. We've done all of that. It is at the FAA. It went in well before the shutdown, but I'm assuming right now no one's looking at it. But we're waiting to hear back on the FAA. And the plan for that project is to be going out to bid. The ideal time is kind of December, January is the timeline. That way contractors don't have to wait or hold their bids for 6 or 8 months. So that one's ready to go. And then the other project is Taxiway Charlie, the last couple thousand feet of that. If you recall what happened with that, it was designed, it's a state-only funded project. It was designed, it went out to bid, got 2 bids for it. One of them was great. It was about $50,000 under budget, but they screwed up their bid, the contractor. And the state wouldn't let us award it to them. With what they had done is mobilization is one of the line items, and it had a maximum amount of 10% of the project. Their mobilization was about 22% of their bid. The state wouldn't allow awarding to it, but we didn't have to bypass it and go to the second bid, which was about $150,000 over budget. So the project was rebid. Both companies submitted again. That low bid, that was $50,000 under, they redid their bid and raised it $100,000. So with that, it obviously is more than the funds available. We've been working with Bob and with UDOT. UDOT is on board supporting it, but it's currently in the hands of, literally this morning was talking with Connor, and it is in the hands of the director of UDOT Aeronautics. And he has taken it to operations director and actual UDOT director. So we'll let you know as soon as we hear anything on that. So those are the primary contracts. Any questions on what we've got going on? And the final, the snow removal equipment. It was a federally funded project looking at getting basically a dump truck with a plow type of equipment. It is currently being constructed in Salt Lake, and it should be here sometime in the next couple of months. They said plan on it before the end of the year, before winter hits, is what the company building.
The dump truck and the plow, what?
Yeah, it's basically a small dump truck. It's got a plow on the front of it.
Oh, okay.
So it's much like what you would see, not the same model, but like what you would see plowing a road that's technically looks like a dump truck, but it has a plow on the front.
Okay.
and then the wing on the side.
Okay.
So it is being locally built. The low bidder for that project was local, and
Would it be possible to have an electronic copy of the master plan? I'd like to share it with my council.
I can absolutely, I'll email you the link directly. I can't email it, it's about 51 megabytes. So and that's what I had sent to Ginny this morning, and so I will just send you.
Okay, I appreciate that, thank you.
I had a question that's maybe more of a procedural one. With the bid amount changing, is that something we vote on or the board's involved in? Does that come back to us for Taxiway Charlie?
Typically not.
Okay.
We decided to go with the project subject to funding, and we don't review the bids.
Thanks.
So Judd and Bob, what, the snow removal equipment, in the past we've had Cache County help us. Are they going to be no longer helping us? Are you going to do it now, Bob? Are we doing a snow blower? Are we finished with the old equipment? I just know the wings of the planes get pretty close to the banks when we push the snow. Can you give us a little bit of insight into
We
that?
still have an agreement with the Public Works Department. In fact, we have a meeting with them next week to go over our training, our annual training, and plan and talk with the guys about how to operate at the airport and where we push first. And we still have that in place. We've spent some money during the off season on some of our existing trucks to maintain them, to get them so they don't break when the snow comes. So with that in mind, we have 2 trucks. Public Works brings another truck and a backhoe, which hooks onto a box blade. And then we're gonna get our new truck, and then we've got our snow blower. So fingers crossed, we've got enough people and enough equipment to get the airport cleared quicker and more efficiently than we have in the past.
So who's running the equipment?
It's so Matthias, you know Matt here in the blue. He's another one of my employees. He'll be heavily involved. Casey will be involved. I'll be involved. I've got another Judson Mathis, who's a farm boy from Idaho. He'll be in a truck. And then I've got either 3 or 4 Public Works people, so we can rotate or as needed. So we've got people. Yep.
Any other questions of Bob or Judd? Okay.
Thank you.
Brings us to action item 4, Taxiway Lima Development, Kyle Fisher. Kyle was with us last month and introduced us to this project. If I could set the stage a little bit, all of the taxi lanes that are out there right now were funded by FAA. About 3 years ago, they determined that they would no longer provide access to privately owned hangars, i.e. taxi lanes. And so all of the airports in the country are having to fund any expansion and maintenance of taxi lanes locally. And that is clearly proving to be a challenge for all airports. And Kyle's proposal will provide one way that can be accomplished.
Thanks, John. And I know you guys should have all gotten the development plan, is that correct? So I'm just here to answer any questions that you guys have.
Why don't you review it for? There were a couple that were not here,
Okay.
and there are a bunch of people out there that were not there that are
Okay.
really interested.
You want to come? I'll have Alex explain it more. We've been working together.
So, in the last month's meeting, we just presented these concept boards with.
Can you try and talk more into the microphone?
So in last month's meeting, we presented these concept boards with just conceptual hangers. They're really just for visual. They're not, frankly, they're not exactly what we're proposing to build. But what we've proposed is a development agreement where we would fully fund the taxi lane, the utilities, stormwater.
Those over here so that the audience can see them as well.
Stormwater,
Among the chairs, if you can. Yeah, that's helpful.
I'll hold
They
them.
don't stay up.
You're gonna get tired of those.
should have brought our easels.
I'll take 4 again.
Why don't we grab 2 chairs from the front row and we just put them right in front of the,
Just lean up against this.
Yeah, we can do that.
That would be fine, because we saw the last ones.
yeah, that's fine.
I feel like everybody in the audience is.
But he just said they're not exactly like that.
We didn't want you to get hung up on the colors there. So what we're proposing is full taxi lane build out for taxiway Lima, and then we would work with John and with Bob, and everyone on the list would have first priority for the option to build a hangar, and we would be building the hangars and just selling them at market value, or providing that market value to first come, first serve on that list, and just accommodating that list. That's the first priority, because this has been an issue for quite some time, as I understand. So we would do this we put in the development agreement, basically we would handle every cost. The liability for the Logan-Cache Airport Board and entity is very minimal with this. We would bond, obviously, for completion, and we have proposed 4 phases. We think we can accomplish it in 2, but we put 4 phases in the development agreement, and we would basically work with Bob and John to create and provide conceptual plans and layouts to meet the needs and demands of the airport, and they would improve that, or they would approve that, and it would follow obviously in line with the master plan. That's the goal.
So the hangars that you build will be of a size that is specified for that taxi lane?
Correct. So if you look at the master plan, it actually has larger, more commercial sized
Correct.
hangars. The issue there is you have a list and a demand that is not just for large hangars, right? You have a lot of other people that want hangars as well. And so we're proposing initially what it looks like demand, just with initial talks, is 6 larger hangars, and I'm just going to say 100 by 100. They wouldn't be exactly that, but close to 100 by 100. 18 hangars that are about, we're calling these like condo hangars. They're 50 by 50 essentially. And then we have 3 to 4 mid-size hangars that are anywhere from like 60 to 70 feet by 60 to 70 feet or 80 feet. Those aren't exact. And then we have 5 to 6 T hangars, which are just basically, they're a lot cheaper option, and they're just for smaller aircraft. And
So, how does that fit in? I mean, I don't want us to be building so many small hangars when we have specified that they should be larger.
So in the taxi lane Lima, which is what's on these
Correct.
figures right beneath, those look like large corporate hangars, which is exactly what that area was designed. I'm not sure where you're thinking for the smaller or T hangars.
so what we're initially just talking when we're speaking with Bob and with John was, do we have that plan up there? Because I could almost show it probably easier.
I'll just.
Oh yeah, we can just explain it there. If this is the main taxiway,
That's Charlie.
so if that's
Here you go.
Uh-huh.
The apron into Charlie.
what this has is it has larger commercial hangars that extend the entire taxi lane. The issue that we're seeing is just the demand for 10 large hangars like that. It doesn't satisfy the needs of those on the waiting list. And so the thought process is we can kind of stage this as it goes. So the next development that takes place on the next taxi lane, they could do something similar and accommodate more large hangars and then phase into the smaller ones as well. And your taxi lane in here would kind of decrease in width a little bit potentially. Doesn't have to, but the idea is that you have these larger corporate hangars closer to the main taxi lane, and then you kind of phase into these smaller ones, and that accomplishes the demands of.
Well, what I'm concerned about is that we just barely finished a master plan. And the master plan specifies that this taxi lane would be corporate-size hangars. And so I don't know how we justify changing the plan on the fly and, going with something else. And I'm a little, that was not what you talked about the last time? You didn't talk about smaller hangars?
I would actually have Bob speak to that, frankly, just because,
Okay.
But really, in my perspective, from a development standpoint, is you're gonna have multiple taxi lanes beyond this. And the demand is not for 10 to 12 or 14 large hangars, right? So the market demand is not there. So we could go build these hangars, but there may be no one to buy them or occupy them.
Is it possible to build the large structures and make them into sort of condominium sized so they?
That's exactly what. So if you look at the actual footprint of the master plan, those building widths would essentially stay the same. The difference is they might shift to the north or south, and we may double side them for a smaller taxiway around the back for the smaller units. But when I say smaller units, imagine like 100-foot wide.
Another taxiway behind?
It would just be an access point, so.
Okay, John.
The master plan would be consistent.
Okay,
if that
John
makes
and
sense.
Bob are gonna have to speak to this for me because my brain is not wrapping around it.
Can I ask a question, Madam, that I think goes along with yours? Because there's a reference towards demand, but is there a document of that demand, Judd or Alex?
Yeah, I mean, we have the wait list, and it has the hanger sizes on the wait list.
But of a more broad market demand, rather than just those that have proactively come to us. What does this bode for the future, say in 10, 20, and 30-year increments, or something like that? Where's the demand that we could perceive coming along? Because once you build it, it's on the ground.
Yeah.
And it's not going to easily be modified. I'm just wondering where the documentation for the demand beyond a wait list might be.
So within the phases, the idea here is that you don't just go and shotgun and build a bunch of unusable hangars, right? Because no one would want that. It wouldn't be beneficial to anybody. But the idea is that as the development progresses, so let's say that we had 4 phases, let's just cut that down to 2. The first phase would be approved based on demand and that list for that current time. If phase 2 began at the end of next year, we would just look again at that demand and that list and build accordingly. And I think that John and Bob have a great idea of demand, and I think that the list is really your best market study or market analysis, because those that really want a hangar are paying $500. They're writing their hangar size that they want, and they're getting their name on that list. And so that's what we're heavily dependent on.
For our purposes today, I think it's appropriate that we limit our discussion and consideration just to the initial portion of the project, and that would be Taxi Lane Lima, and that is by master plan, corporate hangars. And any further phases would have to be reconsidered by this group at that time based on experienced demand.
I do have a couple of questions about the proposed ground lease. One thing that's mentioned in Article 1, Section 1.1, in parentheses, they've added plus tenants proposed fuel farm. That's referred to again in Section 1.6 use, item A. They have in parentheses, including the fuel farm. Now, that's something we've talked about here as far as revenue for the airport. Do we change what we currently have? Does the airport authority take over some of that? Again, I mean, I'm not comfortable with putting that language in the contract at the present time because I think we need to have more discussions and potentially go through an RFP process if we're indeed talking about a fuel farm. And then the other question would be on the maintenance, because building it is one thing. Again, then who maintains it in the long term, and does the airport take that over? If they do, fine, but then that needs to be budgeted for. So those are just two things I was wondering about.
Regarding the fuel farm, frankly, you can strike that if that's not an option, or if it just needs to be, you guys feel it needs to be put out for an RFP. I don't think that it limits or isolates. I'm not sure on that, John, but it's not a major issue. And then as far as maintenance, it would just stand as the maintenance stands for all the hangars now. From my understanding is that the actual tenant or owner of the hangar is responsible for all of the maintenance and of the facility itself.
But not of the taxiway.
Yep.
Not
I think
yeah.
Jeannie addressed that in a comment last meeting, was that once the taxi lane is constructed to FAA standards, it would then become the airport's.
And frankly, it actually never, it always is the airport's. So what we're bonding for is on the airport property, and it would always be the owner there.
So John, can I be clear? You would like us to just approve, disapprove, whatever, consider phase one?
Yes.
Okay, so, and that consists of so many corporate hangars and the full taxi lane, or a part of the taxi lane?
That part of the taxi lane that fronts the hangars.
Okay, and how many hangars are we talking about?
I think they talk about 4 because they're double loading.
Okay, they're double loading, back and forth?
One on either side of the taxi lane.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
They're utilizing both sides of the taxi lane.
Okay, I was worried double loading meant back and front. That's all. I'm just being like,
And we would phase accordingly. So again, John and Bob would need to approve everything according to the master plan. That's the goal, is that it aligns with that.
So.
But approval would have to be through them. And
So we would have, today, we're only talking about phase one.
yeah, the development agreement entails the entire taxi lane, but our goal here is moving forward with the development agreement with any necessary changes. And of course, for the board can review that again, but moving forward that way. But then the individual phases will be the conceptual plans, and engineering will have to be through Logan City, from what I understand. But yeah, we'll go through that process, and they will be approving and guiding us, and we'll be holding hands through that process and approval.
So it will not come back to us after phase one?
Yeah, in the agreement, I was going to make the same point. Yeah, in 1.3 and 1.4, it says that Bob and John will be the ones to approve, and it doesn't, at least in this agreement, it doesn't say it'll come back before the board as a whole. So is that something we want to consider changing, so each phase goes before the board?
I think, if I may, I'm going to address that. I appreciate what you're doing. I understand what you're doing, and I think there's a need for it. And I want to be very careful. We're setting precedents. And there are others on the agenda that are saying, hey, we think there are some opportunities here for us as well. And so you guys were first to the plate, and I appreciate that. As I've gone through that agreement, it needs a significant amount of work. And not in a negative way, but we need our legal counsel to go through it. I can tell they haven't. And so I'm not an attorney. I do know some people that are attorneys, but what I would propose is that we could tentatively approve moving forward with a development agreement. But this development, and I would propose that I'm happy to chair it or whatever, be part of it. I'd say we sit down together and really pound through this agreement. because this addresses a lease between the airport and the agreement talks about a developer, and then it also talks about the tenant. And it's not clear to me when that, and then at the signature it says, oh, that's the same person. No, it won't be. If one of those on the wait list end up taking that over, now we got to split out that lease. The lease is no longer with you. It's going to go to the owner of that lease. I just think we need to contemplate a lot of those things, get it in the agreement so it's very, very clear. Don't be offended. I'm going to say it. You ready for this? But if in fact you embark on this and it doesn't work or things don't come together, I've been through projects that are bonded, and it is a miserable process. I feel like we need to just figure out how we can assure that this project is going to make it to completion. So there are just some things in there I think that would be good to protect the airport, as well as making sure that you're clear as to what the expectations are and where we're heading with it. So I don't know if that helps at all, but those are my thoughts as I've gone through these.
Well, your comment also was there have been others that are interested. You're first to the plate. Does that go back to the saying, you know, maybe we do need to do an RFP on the whole process to be fair and transparent and give the opportunity to others as well? I mean, again, it is nice to have someone willing to move ahead, but are we proceeding, again, as a governmental body in an appropriate way?
And Mayor, as part of that process, I would see no, from my perspective, if Forge contractors, if they said, hey, I would like to be a part of some of those conversations so that they are all being treated fairly, again, we're starting this. And if it needs to be an RFP, if that's the way it needs to go, you understand the government side a lot better than I do. On the private side, I could look at it and say, we could make this extremely collaborative and see what we're doing and go forward with a really cohesive plan. I am concerned about the smaller hangars.
Yeah.
I do want to see those happen. I want to see that airport accommodating the needs of the users.
Could I speak to the other developers too? And I hope call me out if I'm speaking wrong here, but the airport has had a major issue with hangar space. And as far as I understand, every single developer in here we're not all vying for the same project. And so I think the advantage to the airport board is you have multiple projects in multiple areas of the airport. And frankly, I think you have demand for all of them. I think they could all be fulfilled. And so I respect the RFP process, but my concern is that you're going to be another 2 years, and then you're going to have to perform an analysis and so right now you have private developers willing to fund these 100%. They are liable. They build the hangars too, and they are liable. If they do not get sold, that developer is on the hook. And so I just want to emphasize that. So
I think it'd be helpful if the developers, if you will, and I'm throwing you all in a big bucket.
Yeah.
And if someone races, let's say Greg with Forge, Greg says, hey, I just want to do this size of hangar online, and what we want to do is make sure we have a cohesive plan that works and accommodates.
And we'd be happy to work with the other developers as a group to kind of formulate a process for this too, if that helps. And we would all be kind of pioneering that, and we're happy to do that. So.
Other comments?
So, John, what do you see as our process here? I agree with everything Brett said, and I also agree that it's fantastic that you want to do this. I just get a little nervous when we start, doing a master plan and then going off in the wilderness from it. But if that's the way that the airport needs to grow, I A, wish it had been reflected in the master plan, and B, wish that, hope that we can accommodate those people that have expressed a desire to own a hangar.
Well, Bob's name has been used rather freely today, but we've been very careful that as we've been responding to the three people that are on the agenda, in pointing out the type of hangar that the master plan calls for in specific areas.
Okay, thank you.
And all of them have received copies of the airport layout plan from Lochner and tell me that they have been developing their plan based on the approved
Okay,
airport layout plan.
okay.
So I think you can be comfortable that at least till 9 o'clock today, there's no departure from the master plan as approved. But
Yeah.
I feel the same way you do, that
Yeah,
because,
I know you do.
okay.
And so I don't know what our move forward is. Is it to have this contract reviewed by a group and brought back to us? Is it that we say that whatever group reviews it, it'll be fine with us, we can go move forward? Or I don't know what the next step would be.
And has there been any public comment on that? I mean, I didn't see this lease until yesterday about 2 p.m. Again, the city typically will workshop something 1 month, and again, I know that happened when I was gone last month, but there needs to be an opportunity, I think, for public comment. And again, I just think we need to be cautious, and again, maybe their proposal is absolutely the best one, but how do we know if we haven't offered that? And I know RFP processes do slow it down. It can be done not taking 2 years, but it does take some additional time. But again, that's sort of what governmental entities typically do, and we are more bureaucratic than the private sector. There's no question about it. But I just think we need a little public comment. Again, I mean, I'm certainly concerned about sort of automatically giving them a, right to do a fuel farm, which you said you'd be willing to take out of the contract. So it's listed as an action item, but I don't know that we're prepared to act. I mean, we can say, let's work on it some more. But again, do we need to go to a broader process of saying, let's see if another proposal comes in?
In response to that, Mayor, is there some way we could move both of those along at the same time, saying we could have a group that could, a small committee that could get the agreement in place? And Jeannie, to your comment, I would think that it would come back to the board for formal board approval. This is a big deal. This is a big direction for the airport to go in, and I'd just like to make sure it's memorialized and it's done right.
Well, and maybe that group helps us put together, so that's the contract. So these are the points we'd like to see in the RFP. This is what we need.
Could you do it in a public comment period as well, to say this is what we're anticipating in general, and we could be receiving that public.
I think you can do that. And again, it absolutely does take time and work for someone to put together an RFP. I mean, we have a purchasing manager at the city that does that all the time. That's one of her jobs. And it does take, a couple of weeks and some work to draft it, depending on how much information there is to start with. And again, maybe public comment would be a great way to get input on, that's something we need to think about including that we hadn't anticipated before. Again, not to say you wouldn't do a fabulous job, but again, I can see somebody coming in and saying, okay, they were first to the plate, so they just automatically got it. What exactly do we want, and are they responding to that, and is it a fair, open, transparent process?
Can I ask you a question?
You did.
I'm sorry. I don't want to.
I think at this point, we're not going to take public input, but there will be an opportunity but I appreciate that. Thanks.
So what would do we move this to the next meeting with the anticipation that they work on the contract or determine?
Yeah, I think Brett's comments were good. We can sit down and sort of say, these are the things that we see are needed, have Bob provide some input, John. But then again, maybe that becomes the basis for, a public RFP. So anyone else that wants to respond to it as well can say, okay, these are the terms. But
at least we have an understanding at that point what we would anticipate in a development agreement. And that way they're not waiting for us. They would have other projects they'd be doing. So I'd like to get something there as solid as we could.
So can I move that we postpone the decision on this until the next meeting? Is that appropriate?
Again, when do we do public comment? I mean, again,
Well, I would assume we could do public comment prior to the decision.
They can submit private comment by email or whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to be a public sit-down meeting.
I love public comment, come on.
I know you do. This proposal was not created in a vacuum.
I know that.
They received significant input from people familiar with the airport and the process.
And I know that this is a taxi lane that is on the list to do. It's on the priority list.
Yes.
So
And
I just was,
my preference
yes.
would be Brett's first suggestion was that we approve it in concept, subject to final agreement on the contract by legal and representatives from this board.
So I can make that motion? I will make that motion, just the way it was
so that means that this is the only contract we're going to consider.
for this particular taxi lane,
And no RFP. Correct.
for this particular taxi lane.
And it's saying we're approving it, but we also need to take the fuel part out, and then we might want to look at it in phases later. And
Well,
that's just a lot of conditionals for me.
We're approving the concept without approving the contract. Is that correct?
And if we could distill that concept down, we would say the concept is having them extend taxiway L. We're approving that broad project. It's still kind of ethereal to me.
Where I was going with it is, I was saying, I'm not sure I'm ready to vote yes and no right now, just to be honest with you. But no offense, Mayor, but let's get her done. You know, let's get moving. And so I have less understanding of the process going through the RFP, and so I will lean to you. To me, what I would say is, let's work. I'd rather not vote personally. I'd rather not vote on something right now. I'd rather get an agreement in place that we, as a smaller committee, that the developers have looked at and said, yeah, that works. I can work within those fences. That makes sense.
We're
Come back.
Yeah,
with
I mean,
something
we're
more
willing to, I guess, there's already been capital spent, right? But we're willing to work with our attorneys and the county attorneys just to create a process for approval. And the whole idea, and Keegan, just to your comment, I totally get it. And Jeannie, you're saying, hey, does this fit the master plan? I think the idea here is the taxiways and taxi lanes are in the master plan. Mm-hmm. The actual building and unit sizes that will be built on those, I think that's going to shift, and it probably should shift to demand. And so as these projects progress, what I would suggest, and I'm not trying to tell you guys what to do, I'm just trying to help, but what I would suggest is that we create in the contract or development agreement that we work with Bob and John to, again, align our conceptual plan with the master plan, and then we get approval perhaps by the board phase by phase, so that you guys are having some oversight there, but we're also aligning and not spending a ton of time navigating all the details with the board. We're doing it with John and Bob.
See, I look at it, in the agreement, it states that you'll build it according to FAA. In my mind, the FAA has approved your master plan, our master plan, Jen. And so in my mind, it's tied to that. It's tied to the master plan. I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page as to what that really means and what you can develop.
To Brett's point, I'm curious, because I feel like you're making an argument for the same taxiway having everything from T-hangers to these large scale. But that's not consistent with deconflicting and grouping that kind of traffic on the ground by aircraft type or size. And so, you know, I wasn't sure if earlier you were suggesting each additional taxiway be grouped by size and user, but Judd, I'd welcome some input if you know differently than what Salt Lake International Airport, when I was on their board, but it just seems weird to have a 737 and, you know, a little Cessna.
And it's not
right next to each other.
airport layout plans that we could put up on the screen. And it's all about demand, Sean. That's really what it's about. We could go build those hangars, and I get the organization, but
I mean, I'm with Brett. I love the idea of let's get it done. Clearly, we've talked ad nauseum about demand of a wait list. But I will admit I have some reservations about a wait list representing the total market demand for the next 10 to 20 years when we're looking at phased development residentially, we look at the interconnectivity and we look at, you know, phased developments, even like industrial or residential, so.
would different size planes, if the buildings were aligned just as the master plan, would different size planes affect that? So if a smaller plane was going on a larger taxiway, does that affect?
We'll ask Judd, will address that if you'll.
I would say smaller planes on a bigger taxiway would not impact the bigger taxiway. However, you only have so many larger taxi lanes, and larger planes cannot go where smaller planes would be set. So with the layout that was shown, it's quite common where you have large hangars, 10,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet, that are used for a singular large aircraft or maybe even two large aircraft. But it's also not uncommon where half a dozen guys could get together and put their smaller planes into that larger hangar. So it's not uncommon to see small aircraft stored in a large hangar.
Well, that was why I was talking about condominium kind of thing in a large space.
So I'm curious, where we have a financial situation that we've noted that we're having a hard time already taking care of deferred maintenance. As noted in the last meeting, this would add, and it seems reinforced in the proposal, that anything exterior to the building would be on the city and county to take care of the maintenance. But we already have deferred maintenance for current asset and inventory that we have, and we're struggling to get caught up on that. So here's where my frame of reference is, and I don't know if my verbal skills will be good enough for it. But if you had back-to-back for the equivalent of larger planes, and you need a wider taxiway, but if you had another taxiway that was smaller because you had smaller planes only using that, wouldn't that limit our width and depth? Like, think of it like a lane.
Your larger ones would be closer to the main taxi lane. Does that make sense? So
No, I'm sorry. I'm not.
So you had already said it was gonna get smaller as it went further out.
and
But
I'm-
does
It was
that
gonna be
meet the
wide
plan?
here and then it was gonna get narrower in the
yeah,
back.
and I think it's just a misunderstanding in the communication. You have, pull that up. So the largest hangars would be closest to the taxi lane.
Would your proposal then be that it narrows
And
as
then
you
it
go
would narrow
further
as
away?
it goes west. So if you look at that, go a little bit. We have a much more zoomed in version.
May I speak for just a moment? I am newly appointed, or elected, I suppose. I am scrambling to catch up with a moving train. I am supportive of what you're proposing, but my legal, as far as I know, has not looked at this agreement. I cannot proceed without having that advice, period. It isn't maybe, it's no. So just let you know that's where I'm sitting, and I would encourage the Cache County representative to act accordingly. Thank you.
Okay.
I can just explain what you're looking at here. So the the buildings in black on the bottom of the screen are existing buildings on Kilo. The yellow taxi lane right, won't select it, but here is the taxi lane in discussion. And this is set up laid out for corporate hangars, the Group 2 aircraft.
So the taxi lane does not get narrower as it,
Not on the airport layout plan.
Okay.
So, because there's only so many limited areas, the
Right.
overall plan shows corporate hangars here, and then also on the back side of the next one, taxi lane Mike. Going into that though, on the north side of taxi lane Mike, these buildings, and if I zoom in, it might come in better. Here you're looking, the next taxi lane up does show the development of T hangars explicitly for those smaller aircraft. So that's the next phase. In addition to these T hangars here for smaller aircraft, around the existing smaller hangar developments between Hotel Delta and Echo, there's 18 smaller hangars that are shown. The blue are potential, black are existing. So the concept of the airport layout plan was to have Group 1 aircraft, smaller aircraft, your standard 2-person, 4-person, smaller type aircraft in one location, corporate sized in another. And again, there's nothing that says that smaller aircraft, you can't get multiple small aircraft parked in a bigger hangar, but there's just only so many locations for larger hangars to be developed. There are additional larger hangars that could be developed on a large scale, when we look at the airport as a whole, across both runways, accessing off of the north side of the airport, but obviously significantly more infrastructure would need to be developed before you get into these hangars up on the upper right-hand portion. Those absolutely are available space for larger or a mixture of, but there's no infrastructure over there right now at all.
That's what I remember from our discussion about the master plan to begin with, was that there was very little space for larger hangars.
We have a motion on the floor.
Which doesn't have a second.
Pardon me?
It has never had a second,
Never had a second.
so it died.
So, is there a following motion?
I will move we continue this discussion pending discussions by a small group about the lease and pending legal opinions from both Cache County and Logan City regarding the lease and the concept of needing an RFP.
but the county as the administrator, I mean, technically it should be county legal that reviews it.
I'll amend it to just be county legal.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's moved and second that we table this discussion pending input from legal and further refining the proposed agreement. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you
Okay,
for your
thank you
time.
guys.
Greg,
We're gonna make you come back, I guess.
come into the lion's den.
We're ready.
While they're getting set up, would ask everybody before you leave, if you haven't done so, please sign our guest book.
While Mr. Fix is getting ready, is there, how do we move forward with getting a cleaner draft together? I see it as not just a lease, but it's the development. How do we move forward with it?
Well, I think George's point that he can't move forward until he gets input from legal. So let's let him take the lead, get a sense of that, and then perhaps you and I and George can sit down with the developer group and say, here are our problems, how do you solve them?
Would it be okay if I were to meet with George's legal while they're reviewing
Yes.
it?
We
and
would
having some
invite you
general
to do that,
conversation?
and John as well.
Sure.
We,
Just let me know.
right,
Yeah,
we will.
just let me
we'll
know.
set up a meeting. Holly, would you like your legal to join that meeting?
They could, probably if we get too many hands in the pot, it could be difficult. We're happy to do
Three's troublesome.
we could certainly do a review once there's a
I
draft,
think
if
it
you'd
would be
like.
helpful to have Logan City have, three
Okay.
of us. Brett, you really have, you're a Logan City choice on this, so Brett probably fulfills that need, doesn't he?
Exactly.
That makes it so the three of us will get together and do that.
Good, and then bring it back to the board.
Yes.
Exactly, thank you.
You're on.
All right. Well, Mr. Chair, members of the board, we appreciate the opportunity to present this morning, and just to talk a little bit about the prior developer with Cal Fisher and his group. We feel that this opportunity with development out at the airport, really those that are here to propose development complement each other. The opportunity for new development on airports at the Logan-Cache Airport, the Spanish Fork Airport. We've seen development at Salt Lake Airport, and we're looking to propose opportunities up in Ogden as well. We've been working with the Ogden Airport. There's an awakening, if you will, in the aviation community. It's been 20 or 30 years, it seems, that there haven't been a lot of airplane hangars built over the last 20 or 30 years. A few here and there. We had an opportunity with an equity partner of mine with Forge Contractors to build an airplane hangar for him. We modeled it after the Cache Valley hangar, and they're good friends, and we built it out at Salt Lake. Came up and Brett toured us through the Cache Valley hangar and modeled that. We then had another individual, high net worth individual, wanted to build a hangar, and we built that adjacent to the M1 hangar in Salt Lake. And we've seen an increasing amount of need for hangar space. I have a friend that is on the development team with Patey Aviation down at Spanish Fork. And Patey Aviation is building 130 hangars. They were having some difficulties with budgeting, and we provided them some budget assistance on that. They wanted to build that. Originally they had a builder, but they decided to develop it in-house, and we provided them some assistance with those hangars. It's with that idea in mind that we're looking to develop hangars here with that similar concept of a larger building that's demised into smaller hangar spaces that we'd like to propose today. So a little bit about Forge Contractors. Forge Contractors was founded, I started it just about 5 years ago after a successful career with a few large general contractors in the Salt Lake area. And one of the first projects out of the chute was this hangar at Salt Lake City Airport. And it just launched us into this aviation world. We'll talk a little bit later if you wanted to see some other developments that are going on. So to answer the question, what documentation is there for need for hangar space? Well, Ogden, for example, with Wasatch Peaks, has a huge demand for airplane hangars. There's the development at Wasatch Peaks, about 67% of the homeowners that are going into Wasatch Peaks own an airplane. They want a space to be able to provide it for them. The question is what's that layout plan going to look like? And unfortunately, Ogden is behind you in developing that. Luckily, they have Lochner with Judd Hill helping them and assisting them, I believe, right? So that's a step in the right direction for them. Spanish Fork has seen a huge increase in needs. So they had, as they developed this 130 hangar project, they had 60, I believe it was close to 60% of the hangars on phase one, which were 60 hangars, so 36 hangars pre-purchased. It is almost as if you build it, they will come. There are 18 listed individuals on the wait list right now. I believe there are more than just the 18 that have committed on your wait list. So there is a lot of opportunity, and I believe these developments complement each other. We aren't competing for the same location. And we have teamed with Scratch Development, and we've got Johnny Arbuckle here with us today. Holland Wilbanks is with Forge Contractors. And I'd like to have Johnny just explain a little bit about Scratch Development, a little bit of history of them. Forge Contractors is a strictly commercial general contractor in Salt Lake County. That we're a smaller contractor. We do $50 million in revenue a year on the commercial market segment, and 25 employees. Aviation is a focus for us, and it's not something new that we just have started. So I'd like Johnny just to talk a little bit about his company.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'll be brief. Scratch Development, I like to, we work with cities. That's where we start. That's kind of where I've spent the last 20 years, is trying to be a good partner and a solution for cities and counties to deliver on their vision for their city. We've done a lot of redevelopment of regional malls. We did the Valley Fair Mall redevelopment in West Valley City. Worked really closely with the city on that. So when I met Holland and Greg and they were explaining this opportunity, felt like a good fit for Scratch, where we really like to come in and help be a private solution for a public need. And this is, I think, a really exciting opportunity where there's a need for it, and excited to be part of that solution. We're based out of Davis County. We have about 40 years development experience between me and my partners, ranging from retail to industrial to office. Right now we have about $250 million of mixed-use development in various processes of entitlement and construction throughout northern Utah and southeastern Idaho. We're really active right now up in Idaho Falls and Ammon City with several projects. But really excited to be here and appreciate this opportunity.
Okay, well, you're familiar with the airport layout plan that Judd had shown previously. The location that we are proposing to develop is along taxiway Kilo and Echo. Kilo is in yellow, and Echo is below that. This is Judd's layout with Lochner's layout plan, and it provides for 13 hangars and approximately 73,000 square feet of built-out hangar space. We're proposing that we would, just similar to the previous developer, come in and we would finance the entire project. We don't want to phase ours. We would like to build it all at once. Our layout is 16 hangars and 92,500 square feet of space, and it provides a variety of sizes. The largest being 100 by 100, with the smallest being 60 by 60 on the interior. We reached out by email with a couple of emails to all 18, all but Kyle, because we knew that Kyle was proposing. And I think one had passed away. So 16 on the list, and then we followed up with phone calls and tried to get some information and understanding of what the individuals in the list were looking for, what size of hangar, what type of amenity space, and it was suggested to us that a 50 by 50 hangar was great. It would be a good hangar, but it really limits the the owner in the size of plane that they could have, where we could, if we went 60 by 60, we could get up to about a 58-foot wingspan, which would be get into that mid-size airplane. You could fit a couple of Cessnas easy in that, but it would also fit that maybe a King Air or a little bit larger airplane. So the idea at the Spanish Fork Airport, which gave us the thought process for here, is to build a larger building, which helps with economies to scale. That would allow us to build, if we were to go with one building, provide savings in costs and efficiency in scheduling. You're able to reduce the amount of footage you have to have between buildings, the spacing between buildings, because you have one larger building with demising walls. So this would have, this building here is 100 by 100. There's 2 of them, and then we also could fit a smaller 60 by 60 in that space. It's the interior dimension of 60 by 60. It comes out to 33,720 square feet. We have talked with John and Bob and Judd, and in discussions with Judd, he wanted to maximize the taxi lane, Kilo, and make sure that we had hangars on both sides of the taxi lane. We had some parking here that just didn't make sense before in a previous layout. This is a little bit of an odd-shaped building, but we think it could be very functional and usable with 3 larger hangars, 200 by 100s, and one about 90 by 90. And then this corner, it might seem like it's an awkward space, but it has a 40-foot frontage that could fit a 40-foot door for smaller airplane space. It could also be a little bit of an amenity area with an HOA for the pilots, for the owners that would want to utilize it for anything they would want. We would want to sell it as a hangar. But that's what Spanish Fork Airport has is some amenity space for pilots' lounge and prep area for the pilots. And our proposal is that we would ask to build the entire 16 hangars at once. We believe that's a 15-month schedule. We would phase it based on building. Some are 8-month schedules, some are 10-month schedules, and 12-month. And all in, as we go from one building to the other, it would take an entire 15 months. Some buildings would come available and be ready to sell after, like these 3 along Taxi Lane Echo would be available 8 to 10 months after construction would start. The proposal also would be that we start construction in conjunction with Taxi Lane Kilo and start with these 2 buildings with that taxi lane. And as we are coordinating with Lochner and we hope to be the general contractor building the taxi lane, we would like to propose on the taxi lane when that comes out to bid, so that we could control the entire construction of the property, and coordinate and work with building the taxi lane as priority, the buildings that would not interfere with the building of the taxi lane, which we think we could build all 5 of the 4 of the buildings at the same time. So these are the elevations. The larger hangars would have a 28-foot door height, with the smaller being 18 feet. All metal buildings. There's some elevations to them. Coloring is not necessarily accurate in the pictures. So that's our proposal. We've got some other pictures of other hangars and things that we had, if you had some questions and wanted to see some other development we've done.
Questions?
Is that a 15-month development time? Was that the timeline?
Construction timeline.
Yep.
start to finish, with some hangars coming available about 10 months, 9-10 months.
Questions?
Again, I mean, I think it's wonderful that we have interest in developing the airport. And I think having, larger developments to do whole sections makes more sense than a lot of little ones. But again, I go back to the process. Again, are there others that are interested? Again, maybe they are absolutely the best qualified, the same with the first group, and they're doing different areas. But I just want to make sure we're going through an appropriate process. But I would love to get something done too, but in the right way.
I think we're interested in what you're proposing. I think in working with the previous parties, we'll begin to come up with a methodology to handle your interest and consider what the mayor has said, and we'll get back to you as a part of that process. But we are very interested. Sounds like an excellent proposal, but we need to deal with the surplus of interest that has arisen.
Very well said.
One thing to consider as well, and I know the approaching it in the right way is important. The economy, the way it is right now as well, is really advantageous to the end user, the buyer of the hangar. And our hope was to get approval today to proceed forward with pending development agreements. That those would obviously have to be approved, but to get we wanted to start our plans and have those bid out through the winter time with the market the way it is, to be able to maximize on the costs to pass that cost savings on to the end user. There's economies to scale in the building of the adjoining space with demising walls. There's also the economies of building it all at once. And we'll finance the entire, our group would finance the entire project as one, and then pass that savings of what we achieve through building it together to the end user. And that was our intent and our hope.
I just don't know that this group is ready to approve it right now today. I mean, it's like I say, interesting idea, but I think we need a little more time.
Yep, I agree with that.
I think that just got added to our workload, John and Brett, to figure out how to respond to your inquiry. We will not be slow. I will promise you that. We will move and we won't be delaying. We recognize that we have some opportunities on our plate and we want to realize the opportunities. So we're interested in each project, and your interest indicates there may be other people interested, that we need to make sure we go through the processes correctly, but we will move quickly.
Okay.
And thank you for your interest, as with the first group, and I assume the second group we're about to. We're delighted there is interest in the airport.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Corey and Andy.
Holland, can I have a card? Need a card from you.
Morning, sorry, we're a little more old school. This is our first time, so we're first time meeting you guys, so we just want to spend the time out there. We'll be brief. Realize we're running short on time. My name's Corey Getchy. This is Andy Checketts. Quick introduction. We're business owners. We live here in the Valley. We have a vested interest in the airport. We're both pilots, so we fly.
And we also are developers. We've developed some subdivisions and multifamily and several other projects as we've been involved over the years with. But today we are just kind of at the beginning phases, proposing just almost identically what is on the master plan for Delta and Hotel. We would front the money to expand those taxiways, and obviously we're limited as far as widths, and we've got a turn to make there, two radius turns there, so we're limited on wing widths when it comes to airplanes going through there. So for us, it makes no sense, just based on the widths of the taxiways, to do massive hangars to accommodate large planes that wouldn't even be able to taxi through that area, if that makes sense. So we're proposing some 40 by 40, 50 by 50, 60 by 60, and then two 70 by 70s, as we've met with the civil engineer and laid it out the best we could to maximize the space. We also want to have some space for cars to park as well, just having, utilize these areas ourselves. We understand that that can be problematic at times. So we're going to try and, again, maximize the space, do it based on the master plan, and front the cost, as we know that's a sticking point for the airport. So, Andy, sorry, I don't want to. You want to take some?
I would like to note we're actually on that list. That these other guys, we're local guys. My question for you guys is we've been building hangars for decades. How do we keep the process that currently you can, if there was a taxiway available, you could come in and you could build. And that was the proposal when we put money down. Is that correct, Bob? That you guys were going to put in the taxiway? It was a pretty simple process. Turn your plans in, build a project. I guess my question is how do we keep it that simple? We're just willing to come in, put the taxiway in, not turn it into a huge business model. We would like, I'm going to be honest, it's a community airport. So how do we merge the two to make the process simple and affordable and not come in, and I'm going to be honest, and not have $3 million hangars? Because if that's what we're focusing on, I'll be honest, guys like me aren't going to be there. And so that'd be my question, is how do we do that? John, maybe you'd know better than me, but how do we keep the process that we've had, but actually have some forward movement?
If we knew the answer to that, we would have done it.
And I think one of the challenges is that we don't have the financial depth to build taxi lanes here, there, and everywhere. I mean, ideally, we'd have a master plan and we'd build taxi lanes just as fast as we could, but we don't have that financial depth to do that. So what's happened is we've built taxi lanes as we could acquire the money to do so according to the master plan, which has slowed down. I mean, interest has grown and our capacity to build has shrunk. So the fact that we have people that are willing to come in and help us realize the master plan and make some money at it at the same time, I assume, is a very intriguing concept for this board, because we would like to see the airport grow. We would like to see the list of people who would like to have a hangar not be as long a wait. But at the same time, I don't know how we make it Cache Valley friendly kind of thing without, I mean, it becomes a government where we have to do RFPs and we have to do that longer, more extended process to make it fair to everybody. When we started the list, that was our attempt to make it fair to the people who wanted a hangar, because earlier than that, it was like whoever came and, you know, patted somebody on the back, they might be the next one. And so I think that we're attempting to retain our community perspective, but include some, you know, more transparency in our processes.
Well, and to your point, I think to blend the two concepts is probably the most fair, because for me, you know, with my private plane, I'm just a small plane, private pilot, right? I don't have $3 million to spend on a big fancy hangar. I just want to keep, you know, my plane out of the sun. And so my intent when I put down a deposit with Bob over a year ago was, hey, if you've got a little space, I'll build a 40 by 40 or whatever I personally need. So I would propose as well, we could outline a section where essentially we would do basically a pioneering agreement and say, hey, we'll front the cost, we'll put in the infrastructure, we'll line these out, and we'll reserve some of these for those individuals that would like to build their own. I think there's a market for that, and I think that assesses the needs of the community. But then we could also offer, you know, a secondary option where we can build it for them as well. But I personally would rather see that. I think that, or at least have a section that allows for that, than to come in and make this, you know, look like Salt Lake or Spanish Fork. I think that's not our airport. I think that's not representative of our community. But again, I may be biased in that.
But my concern is the fact that in the past, we've been able to acquire money from the state or the FAA to build taxi lanes, which they're no longer providing. So if you build the taxi lane, you're going to have to recoup your costs, and that's going to add cost to whoever says, oh, I want to build my own, because they're going to have to help you recoup your costs.
That would essentially be the pioneering agreement, right? So they would reimburse us for that portion to put in the utilities and to essentially make it a buildable lot, similar to a house, right?
Correct.
Or private pioneering agreement.
Yeah, or
taxiway.
Sure. No, well, and again, I being new to this process, I'm not sure. When we've dealt with cities and done developments, normally you put in the infrastructure, you build the roads, and then you dedicate that over to the city. I don't know if that's how this functions.
They have to.
I would assume that with snowplow and public access and agreements, that there's got to be somewhere written down where somebody owns that area. I personally don't want the liability, right? I don't want to own the street in front. I would rather it be a public access. But again, not knowing the process, that would be my assumption. We would dedicate that to, I don't know if it's this board or this or the county or whatever. It just, yeah, it's a little fuzzy. But however that functions, that we would follow that, and to me that would be the cleanest, easiest way to go. And then, you know, to your point, we would just be reimbursed for infrastructure. But again, we could do it both ways, just depending on the direction you guys would like to see. But I would just say, again, from my personal experience, I would love to see a section available to those individuals that have enough contacts, have enough, you know, wherewithal to do it on their own and want to do it on their own.
Other questions of Corey? Go ahead.
I think we add that to the list that needs to be looked at.
Yes, because a pioneering agreement is a totally different animal.
Yeah. So
just to be fair to everybody involved. That's my thought.
We will be fair to everyone. We have to look at how we manage our cost, and the intent is to be fair, but to also be open to all proposals that assist in the larger goals of the airport. And I think your interest is legitimate, and we'd like to figure out a way to make it work for you and for us.
Appreciate that.
I'm impressed, and again, it's not entirely an accident, but the three proposals today are complementary. They do not appear at this point to conflict with one another, and it's to this little mini group to figure out how to meld a proposal that could come before the board in November that perhaps could address all three interests. And I certainly will be working to that end.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys for your time.
Are there any other items to come before the board?
I think maybe could I just wrap everything in a bow or attempt to? I think there could be a perception that we're the enemy of progress here, but I think a lot of points have been made. I agree with Brett. I want to see things built, but there's a lot of considerations. We have to consider facing the public and saying what's fair and who had the opportunity to advance the development. There's legal considerations. There's future maintenance costs, as Sean alluded to. We need to be able to keep up with it if we build all this stuff. So I think, I just want to express my desire. I do want to see the airport progress and grow. But another thing Jeannie brought up was the future plan that was freshly approved Monday, and we're already potentially deviating it from on Thursday, and we want to stick to that too. So between all those considerations, I think that's the prerogative of the board, right, is to weigh all those things and make the best decision. So I think as we move forward, I'm excited to see that happen and that progress continue. The last thing I want to do is have it stall and not happen because we get too bogged down in the bureaucracy.
Keegan, I think that's what we do want to do. It is, in terms of how we proceed, it's really hard to negotiate a development agreement in a board panel like this and to come up with something. So what we set up is a committee. John, Brad, and myself, and maybe that's sort of ad hoc to consider all the proposals, but we may want to mature that into an executive committee that does the homework and then brings a package that's more definitive here for the board to look at. That may be the proper way to proceed. And let's work on what you've given us. I don't have anything else to do for the next month, so.
And George, to your point, I believe that in the time I've been on the Airport Authority Board, this is like a flood of interest in participating in the airport, and it's a flood of interest of people who are ready to roll. And so
how wonderful that is, Jeannie.
That is really wonderful, but it is also a little overwhelming for us as a board. So I appreciate the fact that we could take a step back, just make sure we have all our ducks in a row, and we're proceeding in an orderly and fair and transparent fashion.
Yes.
Just one more thing I'll mention. I do generally like the idea of approving in phases. I think when we break it down into bite-sized chunks, it's easier to approve certain sections and try to think about all 4 phases, for example, on that first one at once and approve that all together. So, I think that can have a tendency to slow down the process, but I think it also could speed it up if we're able to just advance each section one at a time and get consensus.
Well, it also makes it easier if you don't have to go through a divorce.
Yeah.
So, any other questions or input? Appreciate your interest. Excited about the potential at the airport. The next scheduled meeting, anticipate that it will be held on November 6th at 8:30. Thank you.
And send us your comments by email or otherwise.
Yeah, let us know.
Send us your comments.